Hi, I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall. Last week we talked about the most likely candidates for Rookie of the Year in the NFL. But what about the most likely candidates for MVP for this year, Tom? Who do you like in the West?
Well, people are going to jump all over us. The MVP is a very debatable thing. In Denver, how about Charlie Johnson coming back from, years of play in the other division? Charlie's had a great year with Denver.
He really has, and you have to consider Floyd Little, too, I think.
Every year.
For the Oakland Raiders, Ken Stabler finally got a chance to play. He's looked great.
He's been hurt a little bit. That might hurt his chances for being MVP. And in Kansas City, who's the middle linebacker?
Willie Lanier, and there's none better anywhere. In the NFC, well, you look at those Los Angeles Rams and the turnaround they've had, and you have to consider, I think, John Hadl, certainly.
Boy, what a year, though, to come back from San Diego, move up north on the coast, and if you had an MVP choice right now, John Hadl would probably win hands down.
I think he probably would, although, again, you have to consider other people, Harold Jackson, certainly, and Merlin Olsen. And down in Atlanta, don't tell them they don't have some valuable folks.
Well, Lee might be the most valuable because he was the quarterback for the Dutchman that got him started.
And Dave Hampton's had a great year, too. In this week's show, we'll see all of these players and all of the best action from last week's games. What about our featured performer of the week, Tom?
Well, Pat, our featured performer of the week in the West is running back Lawrence, not Larry, but Lawrence McCutcheon of the Los Angeles Rams.
This footage from this year's first 10 games, McCutcheon is 6'1", 205 pounds, a second-year draft choice out of Colorado State.
The big thing with McCutcheon is acceleration.
The amazing thing is last year as a rookie, he didn't carry the ball in a league game. He was activated for only 3 games for special team duty.
Last week, he got 152 yards rushing against New Orleans on 20 carries. That's not a bad day.
He's got 782 yards for the year and shooting for a 1,000-yard total.
Lawrence McCutcheon of the Los Angeles Rams. Chuck Knox, I guarantee you, enjoys this young man's play. It was a big day last Sunday for the Vikings as Minnesota fans packed Metropolitan Stadium to pay tribute to a former Viking standout, Carl Kasulki.
Once a starting defensive back for the Vikes, Carl Kasulki now returns to the Met only to watch as a tragic motorcycle accident left the former Drake University star paralyzed from the waist down. But last Sunday, it was Kasulki who provided the Minnesota inspiration as the Purple Gang jumped on the Bears early. Leading 10-3 at the half, Minnesota found a new spark as a fallen commander was back with them once again. Known for his aggressive determination, it was the spirit of Carl Kasulki that truly started a second-half Viking victory. The Purple People Eaters dropped in to visit Bear quarterbacks 8 times for the afternoon, rolling them for 50 yards in losses, and sometimes forcing them to throw where they should not. On offense, Fran Tarkenton used the super abilities of John Gilliam to beat the Bears for 6. Tarkenton came back with a play-action fake, forcing one-on-one coverage by Bear cornerback Charlie Ford on Gilliam, resulting in a 44-yard gain. Two plays later, Tarkenton turned what looked to be a broken play into a touchdown for a comfortable 24-6 advantage. Tarkenton sat out the fourth quarter, but his offense never missed a beat as Bob Berry directed Minnesota goalward. Berry found Gilliam on the post for a 30-yard touchdown to complete the Vikings scoring at 31. Chicago managed a touchdown in the final minutes of play as Gary Huff used a tipped ball by Viking safety Nate Wright for their only touchdown. Number 82, Earl Thomas, made the reception for the Windy City Boys, but it was too little and too late as Minnesota vaulted to their 10th win in 11 outings with a 31-13 win over NFC Central rival, the Chicago Bears.
Well, Pat, before their game of the Giants last week, the Eagles didn't seem to have a wing or a prayer.
The wing belonged to Roman Gabriel, who had injured his throwing arm the previous week against Dallas. The prayer was that he would recover in time to face the low-flying New York Giants.
Against Roman's legions, the Giants' strategy was to cut the legs from the Eagles' attack and force Roman Gabriel to test his wounded throwing arm. The strategy worked, and when Roman started to dump short passes to his setbacks, the Giants thought the home run was gone from the Eagles' arsenal. But with it 3rd down and 2 from the Giant 30, Roman rose up and hit Don Zimmerman dead in stride for a touchdown. Trailing 10-0, Giant quarterback Randy Johnson attempted some downrange bombing of his own to sure-handed Bob Grimm. But whenever the Giants drew close, the touchdown touch deserted them. On key plays, a missed-blocking assignment ensured certain disaster. Although Ron Johnson gained over 100 yards, the Eagles bottled up the blue when it really counted. With the score 13-6, Roman Gabriel contented himself with handing the ball to number 25, Tommy Sullivan. The shifty second-year man from Miami darted and dipped for 156 yards on 32 bone-wearing carries. Down where the going is the stickiest, Sullivan stuck it in for a score which gave the Eagles a 20-6 pad. But New York kicked another field goal, and then Johnson found Don Herman running free and easy in Philadelphia's porous zone defense. After many futile attempts, Randy Johnson finally drove the Giants home with a pass to Johnny Rowland. Rowland's touchdown was too little too late as Mike McCormick's Eagles won on a wing and a prayer, 20-16. The victory vaulted Philadelphia into 3rd place in the NFC East, while New York remained firmly cemented in the cellar.
In Detroit, the Lions drew the powerful Washington Redskins for opponents in their annual Thanksgiving Day Classic. When it was over, that slick trader George Allen of the Redskins had talked the Lions out of their turkey and left them with a goose egg.
The Detroit Lions have much to be thankful for. They have 3 capable quarterbacks, strong running backs, and an experienced offensive line. And yet this season, they have not put it all together offensively. Their strength, in a sense, has become their weakness. Well, they needed a domineering offense to compensate for an inexperienced defense. And on Thanksgiving Day, when they faced the supercharged Washington Redskins, the story of the Lions season was once again graphically replayed. With number 19, Billy Munson, having replaced Greg Landry at quarterback, the Lion offense continued to sputter inconsistently, while their supposedly weak defense played surprisingly well. But since the arrival of George Allen in Washington, the Redskins' style has been aggressive consistency And using number 31 Charlie Haraway, who chopped away for 107 yards and 18 carries this afternoon, Washington began to advance on the Detroit goal the first time they touched the ball. Completing the 74-yard drive in 13 plays, Billy Kilmer flared to Haraway, who stepped unimpeded into pay dirt for a 7-0 advantage. And then the Redskins showed the depth of their aggressive consistency when Kenny Stone blocked this punt by Herman Thunderfoot Weaver. And like a great full-court pressing round ball squad, Washington applied the pressure. Billy Kilmer then put the squeeze on the Lions' right defensive corner man. First hitting Charlie Taylor on a little shake and go, and then sending Taylor up the sideline behind the Lions' rookie cornerback, number 23, Levi Johnson. Then running Taylor on a square out, and hitting Roy Jefferson slanting over the middle, Washington advanced the ball deep into Detroit territory. At last, completing the offensive pattern, Kilmer found Taylor in front of Levi Johnson for a touchdown, and the Redskins built a 20-0 advantage. Charlie Taylor celebrated the catch and the score in Charlie Taylor's fashion, and the Redskin defense made it meaningful by shutting off the Lion attack. 89, old pro Dave Robinson collected this deflection, and Washington killed Detroit with consistency, using offense, defense, and special teams to crush the Lions 20-0.
The New England Patriots traveled south over the holiday weekend and presented themselves at the cellar door of the AFC's Central Division.
That's for sure, Pat, but instead of knocking on that door, they blew it right off the hinges and almost blew the Oilers out of the Astrodome at the same time.
Some people think the Houston Oilers are going to get the first-round draft pick, but they're wrong because that pick has been traded to Dallas. And last week down in Houston, New England coach Chuck Fairbanks made some friends in the Dallas area when his Jim Plunkett-led Patriots just about finished Houston for the year. While the Patriot defense stopped the Oilers cold, Jim Plunkett got things underway on his first possession when he connected with tight end Bob Windsor for 6. Patriot blitz gave Lynn Dickey no time to unload accurately, and number 27, Ron Bolton, came up with the ball for New England. The turnover led to another Plunkett perfecta, and this time Reggie Rucker's number 33 added up to 6 more for the Yankee horde. When Dan Pastorini came in at quarterback for Houston, it was like old times again. And once again, his health was on the line. Poor Dante. First he was whacked upside the hat by his own teammate, and then he was sacked upside down on the mat by the Pats. As the replay shows, the sack was a safety as well as New England's punctuation to an easy 32-0 rout of the bedeviled Oilers. Yet one team's loss is another sweet smell of success. And over in Dallas, everything's coming up roses for next year as long as Houston continues to put a lock on last place in the NFL.
With no chance to win the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills were merely trying to stay in wild card contention last Sunday as they traveled to Baltimore to battle the once powerful Baltimore Colts.
Any thought of an easy Buffalo win came to a quick ending as the kickoff fell into the hands of number 28, Cotton Spirer. Spirer, a second-year man out of Texas, sailed 100 yards to give Baltimore a 7-3 first-quarter advantage. However, rookie quarterback Joe Ferguson got Buffalo moving with a surprisingly strong air game. The Bills went to O.J. Simpson, springing the juice loose for 12 yards. O.J. then regained the Buffalo lead in typical spectacular fashion. The Buffalo lead stood at 10-7 through the third quarter as the Bills proceeded to apply the pressure. Baltimore rallied on a field goal and a Marty Dumrays to Tom Mitchell touchdown pass for a 17-10 lead in the fourth period. But misfortune struck hard as a bad snap forced a short kick. Joe Ferguson needed but one 37-yard volley to Bob Chandler for the tie. Dumrays and the Colts found even more bad luck as one final miscue cost them the contest. Dwight Harrison's interception was the game breaker. And in a repeat, watch number 85, Walt Patulski, leap into the air, barely tipping the ball off course and into the arms of number 28, Dwight Harrison. For the Colts, defeat again took its agonizing toll as they fell victim to the Buffalo Bills in a 24-17 loss.
The Thanksgiving Day game, Pat, really wasn't an important one for the Miami Dolphins, but, boy, they sought victory with a vengeance.
First, they wanted to avenge their Super Bowl loss to Dallas, and second, Miami wanted to be the first AFC team ever to beat the Cowboys in the regular season.
For the Dallas Cowboys, everything was at stake. Their survival as a contender in the NFC East hinged on a victory against the world champions from Miami. On defense, Doomsday strung Mercury Morris out on a clothesline and then hung him on it to dry. It was a brutal display of give and take, and Miami's no-name defense more than matched Doomsday's thunder. Down deep, the yards came grudging, and twice Dallas rose up and bent Dolphin surges back inside the 10. When Dallas maneuvered into scoring position, they too were throttled. Receivers that seemed so wide open and fancy-free were shut down and speared. Miami grabbed the first big break when a Roger Staubach pass was deflected into the hands of Jake Scott. Scott's return set up a Larry Zonka plunge, and the Dolphins led Dallas 7-0. Quarterback Bob Greasy led Miami to their second score with some nifty footwork of his own. Being a Sage veteran, Greasy knew exactly when to call it quits. He also knew it was time to call on Paul Warfield, who slipped past Mel Renfro and glided in for 6. The Dallas offense was dead until wide receiver Drew Pearson scooped up teammate Walt Garrison's fumble like a shortstop. But Pearson's effort fell short when Dallas missed a field goal, And later, when Staubach set up an impeccable pump-and-go bomb to Bob Hayes, he misfired by 5 long yards. The highest-scoring team in the pros managed but 1 touchdown, and vengeance was Miami's 14-7.
We'll be right back with the second half of This Week in Pro Football following station identification.
Well, there's no way to figure that silver and black enigma that's wrapped in a riddle and shrouded by a mystery, is there?
It's a tough one, Tom, but 2 weeks ago, the Raiders came up with all of 3 points against the Browns, and last week they exploded for 31 against San Diego to continue as the most up-and-down team in pro football.
In Oakland, the cheering this season has definitely been an off-and-on thing for the roller-coastering Raiders. But last week, when the San Diego Chargers came out in one of their wildly creative offensive alignments, it was time for Oakland cheering. Number 43, George Atkinson, put the stopper on this bohemian play. It was Atkinson again when Robert Holmes fumbled, and this time George streaked 59 yards with a bobble to make it 7-zip. The Chargers charged back on a Wayne Clark hookup to Clint Jones, which brought them within range for a successful field goal. But 3-point field goals were no match for silver and black sixes last week, as Kenny Stabler to Mike Ciani started another Raider thrust. Ciani's fumble was after the whistle, and it was just a short 7 yards up the middle for 23 Charlie Smith to make it 17-3. The San Diego punter then came up with another wildly artistic play, which lacked in effectiveness but deserved an A for effort. Taking advantage of this miscue, Kenny Stabler went to number 25, Fred Biletnikoff, in the end zone, and the Oakland lead expanded to 24-3. Number 88, Bob Moore, completed the Raiders' scoring outburst, which was 28 points better than their previous display. Last week, the Raiders' only consistent element stayed that way, as the Oakland defense buried everything in sight wearing a white jersey. Now, if they can only hype their offense up to such dependable performances for the next couple of weeks, there may be some silver and black in the playoff picture yet. Oakland 31, San Diego 3.
You know, Tom, John Ralston really deserves a pat on the back. In just 2 years, he has turned the Denver Broncos into serious contenders for the title in the AFC West.
That's right. The Broncos are really tough. It's sort of like the old song about a boy named Sue. When you start holding hands in the huddle, you better be tough.
It was ex-Colt linebacker Ray May who instituted hand-holding in the defensive huddle as a symbol of the new team togetherness in Denver. And now the Broncos are embracing all sorts of strange and wonderful thoughts. And one of the strangest of those wonderful thoughts was that the Broncos could defeat the Kansas City Chiefs in their showdown for first place in the AFC West. Denver has defeated Kansas City only twice in 27 meetings, but since John Ralston has taken over as the Broncos head coach, they regard that statistic as an artifact of ancient history. But very little has changed in Kansas City, and from the outset, the Chiefs worked to remind the Denver Broncos that history has a way of repeating itself. But quarterback Charlie Johnson and receiver Haven Moses are relatively recent additions to Team Denver, and they had no way of knowing that they were supposed to be routed by Hank Stram's strongmen. And with 2 minutes remaining in the first half, Haven Moses made a nice one-handed grab of this Charlie Johnson pass to complete an 18-yard touchdown play and give Denver the lead 7-0. A repeat of the play shows that Johnson's quick release caught Kansas City cornerback Nate Allen with his back turned, and Moses took advantage of this to come back for the ball and the touchdown. And after an interception with only 45 seconds remaining in the half, Johnson came back to Haven Moses, who stepped through the Chiefs' secondary to complete a 40-yard play and give Denver a 14-0 advantage. Throughout the second half, the Chiefs threatened to come from behind as Mike Livingston found Otis Taylor for consistent gains. At length in the fourth period, Livingston found Taylor for a touchdown, making the score 14-10 in Denver's favor. But thereafter, the Broncos' hand-holding defense shut down the Kansas City threat to record a vital victory for the reinvigorated Denver Broncos, leaving them alone atop the AFC West for the first time ever so late in the season, with visions of Super Bowl dancing in their heads.
The Cincinnati Bengals are the outside shot in the AFC Central Division, but last week they were taking good aim as they blasted the St. Louis Cardinals in a freewheeling affair.
In Cincinnati, there was an unfurling of the colors of the old red, white, and blue. And early on in the game, the Bengals unfurled the colors of the old black and blue on the St. Louis Cardinals. Number 19, Essex Johnson, began the day's scoring with a 5-yarder for 6. St. Louis retaliated with number 44, Donnie Anderson, who rushed for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. The first on this pop into the end zone. Ken Anderson went for the quick strike and just missed on this fingertip slider to number 85, Isaac Curtis. With a modicum of razzle and a pinch of dazzle, the Cardinals, too, went for the big one. But good defense by number 34, Neil Craig, snuffed it out. Ken Anderson's theory of try again paid off nicely on this arrow to Curtis, and the Bengals led 14-10. Jim Hart's theory of try again ran afoul of number 66, Bill Berge, and eventually paid off handsomely for Cincinnati as number 36, Linville Elliott, made it 21-10. Even when pressured, Anderson remained cool and found an outlet in number 35, Boobie Clark, a contender for Rookie of the Year honors. The Bengals rookies continued to shine, and first-year man Linville Elliott took home another 6 to make the Bulls 28-10. The Cardinals now found themselves in a do-or-die situation, and quarterback Jim Hart went out and did, escaping pressure and hitting number 85, Mel Gray, who made an excellent reception. Hart continued to travel the air route and came up with an amazing bit of luck to number 21, Terry Metcalf. Hart then went to his tight end, Jackie Smith, who was very wide open deep in the Bengals secondary. From there, Donnie Anderson gouged out his 13th touchdown of the year to lead the NFL, and St. Louis trailed by 9 at 35-24. But fighting for a playoff spot, Cincinnati wasn't about to let this one get away, and Anderson to Bob Trumpy salted it. Bengals 42, Cardinals 24.
And so the Bengals are now only one game behind that red-hot AFC Central race, Pat, but there's still two teams up ahead, right?
And last week, Tom, those two teams tightened the race even further when they battled it out on the shores of Lake Erie, where the Steelers have not beaten the Browns for the last 9 years in a row.
The Steelers were and still are number one, but their position at the top looks more and more precarious. Last week, it was the Cleveland Browns who were causing the problems. It all began innocently enough when Terry Hanratty, still subbing for Terry Bradshaw, threw a nice completion to tight end John McMakin for a 27-yard gain. But in a replay, we can easily see why Hanratty then had to leave the game with a sprained right wrist. Since Hanratty is the second-string quarterback, that meant the entrance of the third-string quarterback, number 17, Joe Gilliam, who sometimes bills himself as Joe Willie Gilly. At any rate, he quickly took the Steelers to a touchdown, scoring with a pass to Ronnie Shanklin for a 7-0 Pittsburgh lead. Mike Phipps retaliated for the Browns, scoring one touchdown himself, and then behind playbook-perfect pass blocking, he pinpointed Greg Pruitt slanting in. 14-7, Cleveland. Joe Gilliam brought the Steelers back again before the half, but a field goal was the best they could muster. And the half ended with the Cleveland team leading 14-10 over the frustrated Steelers. Pittsburgh added 2 field goals in the second half to lead 16-14. But with only 3 minutes remaining, Mike Phipps and Greg Pruitt pulled off what may be the play of the year. You count the missed tackles, if you can. "42 yards, and many seconds later, Greg Pruitt was down. But after one play to catch his breath, Pruitt was right back at it again. Number 66, 16-year guard Gene Hickerson was the all-important lead blocker for the first-year runner Greg Pruitt, number 34. Hewitt's touchdown gave the Browns the lead at 21-16 with just 1 minute remaining. But that was enough time for Joe Gilliam to complete 3 consecutive passes for 56 yards. He also got a first down at the Cleveland 15. 4 more passes yielded no payoff, and the Steelers had suffered their 9th consecutive loss in Cleveland. Pittsburgh's lead is now just a half a game over the Browns, and this week the Steelers travel south to Miami.
Last week in New Orleans, the Los Angeles Rams unleashed a devastating running attack that accounted for 340 yards. And since at the same time the Saints had to worry about the Hadel to Jackson passing combination, it's a wonder they stayed as close as they did.
Someone has choreographed a wonderful season for the Los Angeles Rams, who have already won 3 games more than the 6 they took last year and are almost a sure thing for the playoffs. Last week they opened against the Saints with a double-barrel running attack, one aspect of which is hard-charging Jim Bertelsen, who was on his way to 79 yards and 12 carries. Bertelsen's burst took the Rams in close enough for a 3-0 lead. The Saints flashed right back on a pass from Archie Manning to number 41, Bob Newland. The Rams were in a little trouble and had to pull the trigger on the second barrel. The second load of buckshot is number 30, Lawrence McCutcheon, who consistently ripped off medium to long gainers. Although his fumble turned this play into a wild Saint gain, it was his only mistake of the day. The staunch Los Angeles defense took any scoring plans that Archie had for New Orleans and turned them topsy-turvy. Jim Bertelsen continued his runs for daylight as he ripped off a chunk of 33 on this play. Then, taking a short pitch from John Hadel, Bertelsen scampered in to put L.A. on top 10-7. The Rams later combined a little sleight of hand and some tricky maneuvers for a hookup to tight end Bob Klein, number 80. Hadel then went to Klein again, and the Los Angeles victory seemed inevitable. The replay shows just how wide open the 6'5", 235-pound Klein got, and makes one wonder how a guy his size sneaks clear. All that was left was for Lawrence McCutcheon to show his multi-purpose abilities as he led the Rams in receiving and rushed for 152 yards. This from a man who didn't even run the ball once last year. McCutcheon's talents brought the Rams in close enough for Tony Baker's 5-yard score as Los Angeles closed in on the playoffs with a 24-13 win over New Orleans.
So the Rams continue to lead the NFC West by 1 game, Tom, but they better not look back because there's a team 1 game behind them It's about the hottest item in the league right now.
Well, that's for sure. The Atlanta Falcons have now won 7 games in a row. And the way they're going with General Lee at quarterback, they may not lose another game this year.
Flushing Meadows, home of the Mets, Jets, and last week the Wets. Yes, Flushing Meadows was the scene as the Atlanta Falcons tiptoed into Shea Stadium in lovely, clean white uniforms. The Falcons are hot. So hot that Hall of Fame player Norm Van Brocklin now seems to tower over the coaching fraternity as well. Joe Namath was starting his first game in recent memory, but the natural mud surface was to be the great equalizer. And both teams wound up with almost exactly the same statistics, including almost exactly the same number of good natural mud baths. Claude Humphrey, number 87, helped Joe Namath inspect the condition of the field a little more closely. Not to be outdone, the Jets helped Bob Lee get a better look at the interesting cumulonimbus formations. Bob Lee and rookie Tom Jardine then gave the Jets a lesson in beating the blitz. Jardine's score gave the Falcons the early lead, but Joe Namath brought the Jets right back, and for a while, there were glimpses of the good old days at Shea Stadium. Namath capped an old-fashioned 13-play drive with a third down pass to Rich Castor for the tying touchdown. In the second quarter, the Falcons scored once again after a New York fumble at the 1-yard line, and then again when Bob Lee found his other rookie wide receiver, Lewis Neal, somewhat open over the middle. Sometimes the zone doesn't work out as diagrammed, and early in the third quarter, Joe Namath had his shot at an easy touchdown against Atlanta's pass defense. Eddie Bell's romp brought the Jets within 1 point at 21-20, but thereafter the league's leading pass defense shut down Joe Willie Mudshoes. Strong safety Ray Brown had 2 of Atlanta's 3 interceptions as the Falcons rolled to their 7th straight victory. With 3 games to go, the Falcons already have assured their highest scoring season, and with 8 wins, the best record in their history. As for Joe Namath, he still hasn't defeated a team with a winning record since, well, you remember Super Bowl III, don't you?
Well, the tough get going when the going gets tough. I was a 5-0 last week on prediction. Not bad for me.
I can hear you coming back there.
Okay.
Tom,
Close?
your record is 32-28, and mine is 37-23. We're both over 500, so I guess that's respectable.
How about Buffalo at Atlanta? Do you want to take a shot at that?
Well, I'll take a shot at Atlanta.
I'll take a shot at Atlanta, too. I think the Falcons are rolling.
All right, Cleveland's at Kansas City. This is a tough one, a game that both teams have got to win.
I think Scorch is doing a great job with the Browns, though. Craig Pruitt's come on to do the breakaway job they've needed. I'm going to go with the Browns to beat Kansas City.
All right, just because it's back at Arrowhead Stadium and because it's a must game for the Chiefs, I'll take Kansas City.
Okay.
Then there's a honey at Denver. Dallas is at Denver. A must game for both teams, too.
Maybe in Denver's the big key. I'm going to go with the Broncos at home to be mile high. I hate to be cliché.
They're pretty tough out there. I know that. I'll take the Dallas Cowboys. They have got to win to stay close to Washington.
And they've got a big rest after the Thanksgiving day.
That's right, and they play the Redskins next week.
Okay.
At any rate, we'll be back next week to show you what happens in all of those games. I'm Pat Summerall.
I'm Tom Brookshire, and we'll see you next week.
Brought to you by West Clocks, a division of General Time, a Tally Industries company. Promotional consideration provided by Best Western Motels. There are over 1,250 Best Western Motels located in more than 900 cities throughout the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And by American Airlines. If the sun is shining there, chances are American flies there. From the Caribbean to California to the South Pacific, American Airlines to the good life. Program materials for This Week in Pro Football traveled via REA Air Express.